Hey everybody, Mr. Wyatt here again, and today we're looking at topic 6, section 6. We're finding the whole given a part and the percent. The good news for you today is what we're doing today is very much what we it's just like what we did yesterday. I mean, it really is. Only now instead of finding just a part of of a whole amount, we're finding the actual whole amount itself. So here's an example. Bree scored 90% on her math test. Out of the total possible points on the test, her score was 135 points. So 135 points, that's not how many points were possible on the test. That's how many points she scored. You can see on her math test paper here, she scored 135, which earned her a grade of 90%. Think of it like this: 90% of what number is 135? So how many points were possible on the test? 90% of what number is 135? Let me write that down. 90% of what number is 135? See, 135 is her part of the points possible. The whole amount is what's missing this time. So we're trying to find what number that is, how many points were possible on the test. So again, just like yesterday, I'm going to go from left to right. I'm going to translate all these words into symbols, and then I'll write myself an equation that I'll be able to solve. Okay, so 90%, we're going to rewrite that as a decimal. So we take the decimal point, it's at the end of the number. Because it isn't shown, it must be at the end of the number. Move it to the left 2 spaces, 1, 2, and we get 0.9 or 0.90. I'm just going to put 0.9. I don't want to show the 0 at the end of that because I don't have to. You can't make me. All right, of what number? Of, remember, that means times. Is, remember, always means equals in these problems. So 0.9 times some number. Of what number? I'll call that n. I know the percent. I'm not looking for a percent. I'm looking for an actual number. Is 135 equals 135. And now what you'll see is, just like yesterday, we end up with a one-step equation here to find n, the number. To isolate that variable, we have to undo the multiplying by 0.9, and we can do that by dividing by 0.9. We end up dividing by a decimal. And something interesting happens when you divide by a decimal value that's between 0 and 1. You will get a result that's larger than what you're starting with because you're dividing by a part of 1. You're not even dividing by 1 whole. So good thing we get to use calculators. I'm going to go ahead and use my calculator. 135 divided by 0.9 or divided by 0.90, if you want to show the 0, you may, equals 150. So that means on this test there were 150 points possible. Bree had 135 points on for her score. That's a pretty good score, 90%, but there were 150 points possible. So it really is just like what we were doing yesterday. You just go ahead and take the words, translate them into symbols. Let's look at another example. The students in one classroom sold tickets to the talent show. They sold 200% of the amount of tickets. That's terrible grammar right there. That should be the number of tickets. Professional textbooks, professional questions, and they can't even get the grammar correct. I'm so sorry, everybody. All right. Anyway, they sold 200% of the number of tickets that they sold last year. That's larger than 100%, which means they actually sold more this year than they sold last year. How many tickets did the students sell last year? Find the number of which 200% is 40. All right, so they sold 200% of the number of tickets that they sold last year. One classroom sold a total of 40 tickets, it says over here. So 40 tickets is 200% of what they sold last year. So 100% would be half of that, which would be 20 tickets, right? So the number that they sold last year must have been 20 tickets. That's pretty easy to see when you have these written like this, isn't it, with these two number lines? Anyway, another way that we can do this is to write and solve an equation. Okay, and so we have to figure out, well, what are we asking? What's the question that we're asking? How many tickets did the students sell last year? Find the number of which 200% is 40. So 40, you could say it like this. 40 is 200% of what number? That's one way you could say it. 40 is 200% of what number? Or you could say it the other way around. You could say 200% of what number is 40. You could say it either way. Some people would prefer to write it this way or think of it this way, because watch what happens when I take this one here and write my equation. Is and of are my key words here. Is means equals, of means times. 40 is 40 equals. That's the first part. 200%. How do you write 200% as a decimal? Well, my goodness, if you move the decimal point, it's at the end of the number. If you move it in 2 to the left, you get 2. That's weird, huh? Of what number? Of means times. So times some number. So to solve this, I end up dividing by 2. And I do the same thing on the left side of the equation, divide by 2. We find out n equals 40 divided by 2, which is 20. So 20 tickets is the number of tickets they sold last year. Okay, so when I phrased it this way with 40 is, all of a sudden we end up with the variable, the missing number, on the right-hand side of the equation. Some people don't like that. If you had written it this way, 200% of what number is 40? Well, then you can convert 200% to decimal form, which is 2, of what number times some number, n, is 40, equals 40. And you can see you're still doing the same thing. You're dividing by 2 here and here, and we get n equals 20. Sorry, I'm writing right over the print here on this page, but hey, it's a free country. I can do what I want. Anyway, n equals 20. 20 tickets. That's how many they sold last year. This year they sold 40 tickets, twice as many, 200% as many. All right, let's look at another example. Find the whole when the percent is a decimal. 62.5% of what number is 30? So we have some number that we're trying to find, some whole amount. 30 is a part of it, okay? 30 out of some number represents 62.5% of that number, and that number would be 100%. And so you can show it on this number line, this double number line diagram, this way. And you could solve this if you wanted to, but you'd have to figure out what your spacing here happens to be. And it's a little bit tricky on this one, because to get from 62.5 to 100, you're going up 37.5. And well, how are you spacing this out over 3 spaces then? What's 37.5 divided by 3? I don't know, 12.5? So you must be going up 12.5% on each of these. That's a little bit awkward, okay? And then if you're at 0 here and you're at 30 here over a space of 5, then we must be going by 6's here, 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48. Oh boy. Would 48 be our whole amount? 62% of 48 is 30? Do you think that's true? Well, let's find out. Let's write and solve an equation. So 62.5% as a decimal is 0.625. Of what number, so times some number, is 30, equals 30. The key here is, again, knowing of means times and is means equals. And now to get n isolated, we have to get rid of the times 0.625. And the inverse would be to divide by 0.625. That's your inverse operation. Again, anytime you divide by a decimal value that's between 0 and 1, you're going to get something larger than what you're starting with. Those cancel each other out. They undo each other. And n equals, I'll grab my trusty dusty calculator here. And I have 30. I'm dividing by 0.625. And it equals, oh boy, it equals 48. 62.5% of 48 is 30. You could check your answer by taking 48 and multiplying by 0.625. And if you do that, you'll end up getting 30 for a result. Okay? All right, so try it. 300% of what number is 180? You know, 300% is triple 100%. So I could say triple of what number is 180? What number, when you triple it, would equal 180? You might be able to figure that out mentally. But let's write ourselves an equation. 300% as a decimal would just be 3. Again, our decimal point's not shown, so it must be at the end of the number. And if you move 2 spaces left, you get 3.00 or 3. Of some number times some number. I wouldn't have to show the time sign. I could just put 3n. Is 180 equals 180. So now to undo this here, I have a one-step equation. I divide by 3. Do the same thing here. Divide by 3. N equals 60. Is it 60%? No, we already have a percent. We were just looking for a number, and that number is 60. 300% of 60, triple 60, would equal 180. 60 times 3 does equal 180. Ooh, look at this percent. This is a very small percent, 0.3%. I mean, that's less than 1/3 of 1%. 0.3% of what number is 24? Let's translate this into symbols. 0.3%, what would that be as a decimal? Some people think, well, I have a decimal, 0.3. No, it's a percent. That's why you have a percent sign. You need to move the decimal point left 2 spaces. And when you do that, 1 space gets you in front of the 0. Move 1 more space, fill that space with a 0. We end up with 0.003, 3 thousandths as a decimal. 3 out of 1,000. Of what number times some number? I could show the time sign here, but I don't want to. Is 24 equals 24. There's our equation. Just translating the words into the symbols, just the same as we did yesterday. Only now to solve this, to undo the multiplying, I must divide by 0.003. Divide by 3 thousandths. You can use a calculator to solve this. And guess what? We get 8,000. N equals 8,000. Wow. That's a big answer. N equals 8,000. You can check your answer when you're done. Take 8,000 and multiply it by 0.003 and see if you do get 24. I'm going to try it. 8,000 times 0.003 equals, oh my golly, it's 24. That's good news. So it does check out when I check my work. That's it. So it's a lot like yesterday, only now all of a sudden you're dividing by decimal values on a lot of these to solve them, and you're getting answers that are larger than the number you're starting with. Okay? All right, have a good day, everybody. I'll see you later.